So yesterday, before I started recording this, I was watching The Return of the Jedi with a buddy of mine called the Ossessy. If you haven't already, I would subscribe to him. He's a pretty awesome guy to follow. Like, literally, the stuff he knows is probably the most interesting thing about him. Like the stuff he's been involved in and the stuff he's like learned since I think 2012 is very fascinating stuff to learn and to hear. But anyway, and after the movie was over, we talked about a myriad of subjects, mostly philosophy. And he brought up something that I thought was very disturbing the more I thought about it, which is about the postmodernism bullshit that we put up with now. Like it's all about tearing things down. It's very, I don't even know what to call it. Like it's very Marxist in a way because Marxism is all about destroying society and rebuilding a new one, or socialism is, or as I understand it anyway. This is why I can't get behind movements like BLM, like the actual organization that does this shit. The movement itself, I have less of a problem with. Like the statement, I can agree with. Because, yeah, the cops have kind of gotten out of hand sometimes, and they need to be called out on their BS. But at the same time, we need cops. I hate to say it, but we need cops. And I say that as someone who grew up around cops. Like, some of them were assholes, but I liked them. They were the good kind of assholes. I don't mean that in a gay way. And one of the things that this kind of struck with me is, well, one thing we talked about was we were talking about Nietzsche, and we actually watched some videos from Academy of Ideas, which is a interesting YouTube. Anyway, we watched one video about the Ubermensch or the Superman, depending on the translation you hear. And one is and there are some terms that were brought up that I think were made by Nietzsche or were translated from his work, which was the idea of the last man. They live hollow lives. Like they're actually miserable. They have all the material they could want, but it's never enough. Now I combine this with another subject we saw, which was the envious. How they want to tear down their fellow man just to make themselves better. Like to advance yourself it's a zero sums game, as the Ossessy would describe it. And I'm probably butchering the exact way this should be expressed. So if you see this Ossessy, kind of sorry, but this is just something I wanted to do. And also there were some images of Red Sonja I wanted to use in a video. Like I'm not a Red Sonja fan. I've never read one of her comics. I just think she's a hot lady. And well, actually, this was actually something I did want to talk about, kind of. But yeah, the impetus was just I wanted to do something with a Red Sonja video in the background. Anyway, and one of the things that I find kind of annoying about this, like this is one of the things I hate about political correctness, Marxism, socialism, communism, and the postmodernism. It's all about deconstruction and tearing down something. One of this is the destruction of heroes. Like society has really lost its fucking mind, where we can't have heroes anymore. Everything has to be an anti-hero or something. Like it's a good thing that postmodernism is supposedly on its way out the door. I dread what comes next, to be quite honest with you. Like I miss modernism. Like when I read about modernism in a college class a few semesters back, I actually liked what I heard with it. Postmodernism sounds cynical, nihilistic, and well, actually, it is nihilistic. And for the record, I once like flirted with nihilism. Like I eventually turned my back on it because I was kind of freaked out by it. Like as the Ossessy also says, nihilism is cringe. So is atheism. Like I don't subscribe to a particular religion. Like I believe in a God. Like I was raised Christian. It wasn't hardcore, but yeah, from what little I remember of gods that I was taught about, I would rather have a God that is at the very least his plan. He has some vague idea of what he wants. I would rather believe that instead of the fact of, oh, we just live on this rock because nothing. There is no grand meaning. Like I prefer to think there was a plan at one point. We just fucked it up so bad that the plan went off the rails. That is how I like to look at it. But anyway, postmodernism epitomizes this, in my opinion, and where nothing is sacred, nothing has meaning, and it's a depressing world. Like this is one of the two things that kind of perplexes me now. Like I cannot understand why people would choose atheism. I used to think it was cool, but then the more I think about it, the more I realize what is the point of atheism? There's nothing to look forward to. All you have is this life and nothing else. There's nothing to look forward to in death. There's no reunion with those you've lost. There's no seeing those you've loved again after death. I mean, that's the appeal of the afterlife for me. It's just the idea of maybe after you die, there's something more waiting for you. And I hope there is. And all I can say is if when I die and oblivion doesn't greet me, if I do find out there's a God, all I can ask is, was all this suffering worth it? That is it. But anyway, like postmodernism and this blatant kind of cultural Marxism and the destruction of pop culture kind of feels very evil, in my opinion. Like I said as much to the Ossessy and another guy I was talking with. Like I just listened to these two go back and forth on philosophy. Like my knowledge of philosophy is very limited. Like I tried learning philosophy a long time ago, like a few years back, maybe 2015, 2016, after I moved to Texas. I can understand a lot. Then again, I didn't start out with the basics. I went straight to the hard stuff like Hegel. And that was because I found a channel called I remember what it's called. They had these videos called The Philosophy of Some. Like you had two on Fallout, a few for Attack on, one for Attack on Titan. It's like a lot of different philosophy shows. Actually, let me look it up just to be safe, because I want to get my, because I like to give the bases. I like to get my bases covered and philosophy. I also had one for the philosophy of Archer. And yeah, like, and then I took a philosophy class and I tried to learn some of it. Oh, here it is, Wisecrack. That was the first time I got into philosophy. There was another channel called Shadiversity where but then I realized that Austin was a complete douche and I left. I stopped paying attention. Then they stopped posting videos that were good. But anyway, like the only philosophy I could ever really get behind was maybe Socratic. Like he had this good line, "Know thyself." That was something I could get behind. Like because when I first like back in 2013 and 14 when I was after my folks split. Well, actually, mostly 14 when I was getting more into fantasy. I was appealed by the idea of just learning why language is the way it is, and they also felt actually tell me what this is. But anyway, I'm again digressing. Focus, Nathan. Focus. The main point is there seems to be this destruction of society to in every facet. And this is especially of heroes because heroes give you some kind of example to aspire for in in various regards. Like with He-Man and well, not just Red Sonja, with women in general, it's just that they seem to be tearing them down. You have with He-Man, he is killed twice. He is humiliated. He is like it doesn't surprise me. Like this is the same society that says they can't do a Conan the Barbarian series because it's too toxic or too masculine, which kind of shows me how devolved society is gotten. Like we are so crom damn pussified. We're scared of masculinity now. And I look at the soy boys running around and I say this is the downside to fathers no longer being in the home or not being in the home as much. Because none of these soy boys, they would not be around if they actually had fathers growing up. Now maybe that's also on the fault of their fathers because maybe their fathers just one day decide, you know what, ding dong ditch, or just ditched. And or maybe the father left before he found out they were actually a father. Maybe it was a chase of hookup culture in the earliest form, or before it was a thing. But yeah, there's the demasculization and the defeminizing of men and women. This is something I really wanted to touch on, which is there seems to be attack on it, and it's kind of sad. Like this is also something I've noticed with the destruction of statues. Actually, this is something I learned from watching I believe it was Dr. Steve Turley, These BLM, they're iconolists. They want to destroy icons and replace them with their own. That is kind of what these social justice warriors are trying to do. They're trying to destroy the society and build it from the ground up in their own perverted, messed up image. And the fucked up part is the society they want to erect in its place, in the place of all our norms and values, is pretty fucked up. They would have a society where stuff like pedophilia is okay, where pedophiles are okay and feel comfortable to talk about their urges in public without threatening having their ass beat. Now, I used to be somewhat lenient on pedophilia. Like, I thought, you know what, I don't like what they do, but at the same time, they have to live their lives. Now I'm all like, yeah, no, we have to take these guys out back and plug them once behind the ear. Like, I know that's harsh, but because at the same time, by the same token, they did not choose to be pedophiles. They were born that way. But again, they have sex with kids, to paraphrase South Park. So fuck them. They deserve no mercy. Like the only real solution I can see for pedophiles, other than killing them outright, is either building a commune where they're forced to live the rest of their lives without any contact from the outside world, and if they try to leave, they'll be shot, or just leave them in prison for the rest of their days. Like, that is the only solution, I believe, to pedophilia. Like, I'm reasonable to a certain degree, but at the same time, like, I have my limits. Like, I really have a limit to the bullshit that I will put up with. And yeah, we also live in a society where men are constantly being torn down, where ambition is vilified, where femininity is destroyed as this archaic thing from antiquity that needs to die, and it's all utter bullshit. Is all I'm saying. And I wanted to talk about some of these things because, again, you already know why, but at the same time, there were some other things I've wanted to talk about in a video. And can I just get some stuff off my chest? Because this is one thing that Razorfist does that I really like. He just addresses a subject once usually, and then that's it. I want to put my hat into that race as well. I also want to put my hat into the Elric versus Geralt debate, but that's for another video if I ever get to it. And with that out of the way, I think I'll move on to the meat and potatoes and the base of the video. First, we have the destruction of male heroes. Like, one thing that kind of disheartens me as a guy is, this is actually something that Chris Gore brought up on, what's his name? Ryan Kinnell from RK Outpost. He was interviewed in the stream. They posted a clip of some of the stuff they talked about. I actually wanted to post it on here, but I don't know what the laws are, and I would contact RK, but he probably wouldn't respond, so, yeah. I might just post a link to the video where they made a clip from the live stream of this particular thing. But yeah, one thing that disheartens me is how, as a guy, there aren't that many role models for you to have being made now. Like, there's no guide for you of how to be a man now. Granted, I didn't have much of one anyway. Like, my dad tried the best he could, but at the same time, it wasn't like I went on my way asking how to be one or to learn how to be one. It was also that I just didn't care. Like, I was a kid who just wanted to live life and enjoy it. That was it. I was very much like Nietzsche's last man, basically, as a kid. I wanted nothing. I just wanted to enjoy life as it was and to never think about the bad side of it. It was more or less that. Mainly, it was just I wanted to enjoy life. It's kind of like this medicine I take. I enjoy the high it gives. I always want to be in that high perpetually. Like, I don't actually get high from the medicine, but there's this brief moment of, I want to say, elation, where my mind feels like it's at its best, where it's the most productive, and it feels great. It feels exalting, and I want that feeling to be always. In some ways, I had a similar feeling as a kid with when I was playing games or eating or watching TV. I just wanted to enjoy life as it was. Now, you can't do that always, but that was just me. Now, let's say you're also a kid growing up, and you look at some of the role models now, that you have. You don't have many role models. Some of them are man baby, actual man childs. Some of them preach diversity, but they have no tolerance for diversity of thought, and they attack people for having different opinions. You have men who don't act like men. Like this is something Joe Rogan once pointed out about incels that I kind of had a problem with. He's like, they don't know how to be men, and I'm like, well, yeah, someone probably, well, one, when you say be men, that's very vague. Like, if you told me that as a kid, I would not know what the fuck you're talking about. It's very vague. You have to give me a specific example of how to be a man, or I won't know what the fuck to do. I will be very confused. Like, you have to show me. Like, this is something from, again, I hate to go back to it because he'll probably get annoyed that I keep bringing his name up in this video, but when I was on the Discord with the Ossessy, another thing they showed, we watched was some clips from the Gran Torino. One scene was you had this, I believe it was a Vietnamese or a Korean kid he was with. He was showing him and a barber were showing him how to be a man, and he walks, and it's kind of funny because he walks in and he talks to the barber like, "Oh hey, how are you doing, you old I want to say Italian prick." And then he tells the kid to come in and do the same. He does, and all of a sudden the barber grabs a shotgun. He's like, "I'm gonna blow your fucking head off." And then he's like, and then Clint Eastwood's like, "What's the matter with?" After he calms the barber down, he's like, and then they give him all these other examples, and it's just confusing him. Like, if this happened to me, my head would be suffering from overload. And he said, "I don't have any of those." And the barber was like, "I should have shot him." Like, I didn't even get malice from that. I was somewhere between joking and I probably would have been doing him a favor if I killed him. Like, yeah, and the messed up part is it's more so done to men than women. Don't get me wrong. To some degree, this postmodernism is trying to destroy female role models as well. But for the sake of first staying on point with the male one, these are two images of He-Man, or Prince Adam, He-Man's base personality who turns into He-Man. The first one on the left, that is from the 2002 reboot. The 80s one I never saw. Now the one from the 80s, I liked Prince Adam. He seemed to personally grow as a person. Like, he learned not to be so not egocentric, but like when he almost revealed that he was He-Man for what felt like ego purposes or to brag, so people wouldn't think he was, well, what they think of him. The sorceress kind of is secretly there in animal form, and he kind of backs down, and I think he learns some humility as the time goes on. And yeah, there are these lessons to learn, which I liked. Like, it's a shame that show got canceled, and for a while I stopped paying attention to it, or one day the episodes just stopped, and I had no idea why because I didn't know about cancellations back then. But yeah, now compare that, and he actually looks like a man. Like, he looks like a young man who has yet to suffer the perils of life. That's the guy on the left. Now compare that to the Adam from the 2012, 2021 He-Man Revelation or Masters of the Universe Revelations. Look at that. Very androgynous. And they kill him twice. And they make it all about Teela, who is a bitch also on that show. And like, it's always about tearing down heroes. It's not just He-Man. They've done this to, like, I doubt the Osteophile will agree with me on this because he said Rian Johnson maybe he got some things right with The Last Jedi. I kind of disagree, but at the same time, I kind of see his point. But this was also done with Luke Skywalker. I felt like this was intentionally done just to shit on the fans and also to destroy a male role model because Luke was technically a role model. He was not a role model for me. I had no role model growing up, and it amazes me that I've turned out the way I did with some functionality. Maybe it's because I took ROTC and I had a harsh instructor and who were nice guys who showed me decency. And plus, I did have my dad technically as a role model and grandfathers, but that was it. But anyway, yeah, these guys and some other ones have been torn down repeatedly, and it's like, what is a guy supposed to learn growing up, or what is a boy supposed to learn up growing? Or what is? I'm sorry, I swear, English is my first language. Like I've said this before, but my mouth, when the words come out, it just does not compute. What is a boy supposed to learn growing up from these stories? Because And granted, the Revelations is not something that I think a kid would be watching. I don't think. I have no idea if they would show it on a kid-centric show or channel, but yeah, it's also about just destroying the stuff we loved when we were younger. Like the 2021 one, that wasn't destroying the Prince Adam from the 2002 one. It was kind of destroying the He-Man of 1980. I want to say three, or whenever it was in the 80s that He-Man came on. Like, I don't like it because it looks kind of campy. And as Chris Gore says, it looks like it was made just to promote toys. I mean, I could say the same thing about the 2002 one because I remember there being toys for that as well. Can't remember if I got any. I was more of a Transformers toy collector, especially the mini cons. I love those. But anyway, but Revelations is supposed to be like a spiritual successor to the 80s one, and he looks nothing like the He-Man from that one or the Prince Adam as far as and now I have to look that up as well. He-Man Prince Adam 1980s. Oops. Alright. Yeah, he looks nothing like Prince Adam from. Well, no, maybe. No, kind of doesn't actually. Like even Prince Adam in the '80s was kind of muscular and very masculine. And again, the 2002 one, he also had masculine traits. The one from the 2021 one that Smith made, his Abomination, had a very androgynous person who gets killed off once when he actually looks masculine, and once when he looks androgynous, and the villain wins. And that kind of speaks to the nihilism, I think, of the postmodernism stuff we have going on now, in that you have very nihilistic, cynical, there is no meaning in the world. Also, there seems to be this whole you have to tear down people to build someone else up. That's also something that I think is of postmodernism. Again, something the Ossessy pointed out when we were watching the video on, I believe it was Nietzsche. I'm pretty sure it was like this was last night at the time I've done some of these recordings, but my memory still is starting to fog on me. But yeah, as he put it, to the postmodernists and the people who make stuff now who like to tear down people and see ambition as a bad thing and creativity as a bad thing, life is a zero sums game. You cannot build something up without tearing someone down. You have to win, someone else has to lose. That is not always true, in my opinion. Like, I would love to build stuff and leave a creation of legacy, but I don't want to trample on someone else to do it. I don't think a lot of people who are creative have done that intentionally to break someone down. Maybe they had people they didn't like or didn't get along with, but I don't think they did. I don't think they were malicious about it. I don't. As far as I know, George Lucas didn't make Star Wars to spite anyone. He did it because he was just influenced. Like he ended up going into movies out of serendipity. Well, not serendipity. He ended up there because, like I saw again, this goes back to those Discord where I was watching all these videos with these guys. One of them was some interviews with George Lucas, and you see that he went through a lot of different stuff through life, and he went through a lot of different phases in his life and different things. And movies was just something he ended up in. I don't know if I'd say by serendipity, but it was definitely something he ended up in, and the world is better off for it. I don't think he went in creating just to spite or to tear someone down intentionally. If someone was torn down, it was either by accident or complete coincidence. I don't think Michael Moorcock made the Elric saga trying to tear anyone down. He was just making. Well, I think he was trying to make it a complex character, which I kind of like based on the comics I've read. I don't think Tolkien, again, intentionally made the Lord of the Rings or the various other lore he made and that his son would later finish for him after his death was made to tear someone down. He did it for amusement. Like he made Lord of the Rings based on his knowledge of both languages and the World War One fights he was in and his experience in the Great War. He did all that for personal amusement and the amusement of his children and the amusement of his friends. He did not do it with the goal of tearing someone down intentionally. And if anything, I think he probably would have gone out of his way to avoid tearing someone down. Like, the only time he ever attacked or tore someone down was when he said he didn't like something. That was it. And as far as I know, the only thing he didn't like was Dune and what was the other? And I mean Dune. In case you don't understand me, I don't mean Doom, the game series. He died before that. I mean Dune, like the movie that's about to come out with the desert stuff in it. I think another was Alice in Wonderland. He didn't like, and he would just voice his kind of not contempt but disapproval in letters, maybe. So yeah, he did not go out of his way to tear people down. Robert E. Howard did not go out of his way to tear people down. And Lovecraft, sure as shit, did not go out of his way to tear people down. He might have had some opinions you might not have liked, considering they don't jive with today's norm. But he was just making stories, and he did it for the love of it. And I know that was a tangent, has nothing to do with it, but at the same time, you do not have to tear someone down to build yourself up. And ambition is not bad. You can look at the ambition of others and the actions of others, and you can build on that or take inspiration from that. You should look at what people have built and not feel envious. You should feel inspired. You should feel glad for them and say, I want to do something like that of my own. I want to make something like that of my own that is mine and make it my own. You should want to do that instead of tearing people down. And to quote Kevin Smith, if you are one of these people, grow the fuck up. Like, if you are one of these people who tears people down because either you're envious or you probably won't contribute to society the way those people have, grow up. Just grow the fuck up. Another thing we talked about was the envious. I don't know if I brought this up already, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. How the evils of envy, it can lead you to tear someone down. Again, going back to that point briefly. Actually, no, this is something that I touched on anyway, but to put more clarification on it, this is something the Academy of Ideas has a video on about envy and the evils of it. They would, and this kind of ties into social justice because I also think the video touched on that as well. Is social justice is all about envy. It is about the fact, oh, they have this greatness that I'll never have. I want to destroy it. I want to break it. I want to destroy society because I am not benefiting from it. And I said it in Discord and I'll say it again. That is an evil mindset. Or at the very least, the people doing this are evil. They are trying to destroy society just because they are not doing well in it. And it's like, if it's not good for me, it shouldn't be good for anyone else. And that is a very pathetic mindset. And I think that actually, the story they told on one of the stories they had from Nietzsche was there was this guy who told the story of the Ubermensch and the last man. The crowd, by the end of the story, was like, we want to be the last man. You can have the Ubermensch or the Superman. And then this being, I forget his name. I want to say it started with a Z. I'll have to look it up later because I wanted to use it in the story. But he decides he will give some of this greatness to certain men who meet the priorities to become it. And everyone else, not so much. Anyway, back to the whole destruction of men. Like, there are a lot of people I blame for this, to be perfectly honest. One is postmodernism, because, again, it is about the destruction of everything, of society, of our values, of our heroes, of our idols, of the things we look to aspire to be. And this can be done for many reasons. One, it could just be complete idiocy instead of malice, but I don't buy that because it seems like the people doing this know what they're doing and they just don't care. The male feminists and the beta males, I can see them kind of doing this because they want to get laid and they want women to be more attracted to them. Newsflash, they're not. They are never going to be attracted to you the way you are. Or at the very least, maybe after they've had a kid once and they're looking to settle with someone to help raise the kid, or maybe they're looking for something less interesting, they might go to you. But I think they do that for that reason. The feminists, like, and I don't mean like all feminists, I mean the current waves, like the fourth and the third wave. The first wave of feminism, like the suffragettes and them, they were okay women. They were women that I look at and I can actually respect. I look at them and I think, like I wish they were around now. Like I had a kind of like a feminist teacher in one of my college classes like that. She was the only feminist I ever met in real life, as far as I know, and she's the only one I respect outside of Camille Paglia and Christina Hoff Sommers. But some feminists, they hate men. They want to tear down men and they want to see them suffer. Because either A, they hate men for personal reasons like, oh, their daddy left them at a young age and that left a very bad image of men in their minds, or maybe they had a bad breakup, or maybe they. Like, there can be any number of reasons for why they hate men. Like, there's sometimes I don't like women. That doesn't make me misogynist. It's just, I see the way some women act and I'm like, yeah, I may never want to get married or date. Like it's hard enough to date now because, well, for me, because one, I'm not that attractive. I have this beer gut, even though I've never had beer a day in my life. I need to work out and lose it. The other thing is, I like redheads, and that's the only one I really wanted would be attracted to. Well, not maybe, but it's still possibly I would date outside that. But yeah, redheads apparently are crazy, which couldn't be a bad thing. I hear crazy people actually have good sex, but anyway. But yeah, it makes it hard for men to want to date now because you see the way women act now, and some of them lie about you. They say you've done one of the most horrible things you can be accused of as a man, which is rape. Like that is a terrible thing to be accused of. Like if that was me and I had been accused of that, I would have been devastated. Like that is the lowest form of life. That is the weak. Like a rapist is the weakest kind of man. You don't want to be weak because I despise weakness, to be perfectly honest. That's why I can't stand people who act like victims. Oh, poor me, feel sorry for me, pander to me, give me free shit. And yeah, it's just stupid. And the academics, I think they're doing this because they're the very least they're okay with it because either they think it's the right thing to do, they actually believe the bullshit, or they're just going with the flow. In which case, I hope history remembers them as the traitors they are for the destruction of society. Because these people who do this stuff, they want to destroy not just American society, they want to destroy every value, every line, everything that resembles the moral compass we have now. And believe me when I say that is kind of weird coming from me because my moral compass is kind of questionable. Because there are certain things I'm okay with, but they want to destroy all that. Things that have been around for not just generations, for maybe centuries, going all the way back to the start of Christianity and maybe even before that. Because a lot of our values come from not just from Christianity. Some of them come from some probably come from Greece for all I know, because there are theories that Greek mythology was a heavy influence on Christianity, like Jesus being a carpenter, or the idea of carpentry that might have come from Odysseus, supposedly. Although Jesus may have been a real carpenter, so maybe that theory is bullshit. But at the same time, there are these values, these consistent themes that have been valued throughout history and time. They appear in not only in people of the real world, but also in mythology, folklore. This is something that I believe was brought up by Joseph Campbell. I think I still need to read his book, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, but anyway, there and this is also something Ossessy brought up when we were talking about like near the end of the Return of the Jedi. We talked about how, well, no, he brought up how psychopathic Sidious is. Like I never actually fully thought he was a psychopath, but now, when he said it aloud, I thought, yeah, he kind of is, because I thought, you know what, he kind of has some of the qualities of one. When things don't go his way, he lashes out, he vents, he gets violent. He had a very shitty dad, Sidious did. So, and when I brought this up, Ossessy was like, yeah, these are like psychological motifs that have been in mythology and societies and religions throughout the, or maybe just mythology. I can't remember exactly what he said, but they have been in them for centuries, and they've been passed down. Even before we had writing, we had oral stories. Like you had the story of guilt, or and even before some people lost the ability to write stuff down, they were written down in tablets, like the story of Gilgamesh. Which, by the way, you know how people like to bitch that they say the Berserk takes a long time for each new segment or edition to be published. Yeah, Gilgamesh, like it looks at Berserk and is like, hold my beer about that. Just to point that out as a joke I heard. And yeah, this whole tearing down of men, I think, is not the epitome. It is a symptom of the problem. One that is not being addressed, and one that is sadly being allowed to fester like a tumor. And you do not allow a tumor to fester. You get rid of it as soon as physically fucking possible. So yeah, this destruction of men is just, again, a symptom of the problem. It is like a small part, a fragment of the issue. It is a part of the greater, almost evil machinations of a group of people who want to destroy society and the values we've had for centuries, or values that have been developed and cultivated over the centuries. And unfortunately, people have been allowing this to happen, which I find annoying because boys need role models. And I was going to kind of touch on this later, but I'll touch on it briefly here. It's also kind of hypocritical of them that they are fine with women having female role models. I mean, they're not, like, they're still shitty. Again, this is something I'll be talking about later when I get to the female part. But when it's a male show, they not only have to tear the male down, they have to make it female centric. So, girls, you can have your role models. Us guys, or the guys growing up now, they are not afforded such luxury. And to that I say, to the people doing this, you are evil. You are scum. You are no different than the Vandals who burned, well, not burned, but sacked Rome, and more or less, and the people who contributed to it taking a swan dive eventually. And you will thankfully be forgotten by history. Like, that's the thing about people who have a legacy of destruction. Some of them are remembered. Some, not all. And the people doing this, some of you will probably be thankfully forgotten, and that's a good thing, because you do deserve to not be remembered by history. You deserve to be a fading memory. Which is kind of hypocritical of me, because I like to think that no one deserves to be forgotten. Everyone should be remembered. But for you people, I will make an exception. You are evil, ghoulish, and just the worst kind of people, if I'm being perfectly honest. As for the attack on femininity, I think it's pretty, like, it is about as obvious as the attack on masculinity. Like, again, I think this is a part of the postmodernism thing, not just with the destruction of heroes, but the destruction of things that have been a staple or a part of our cultures. I also find it to be as pernicious as the attack on redheads, but that's another thing altogether. And I chose these two images specifically because the one on the left, that is kind of what some guys kind of want out of a woman. They want a woman who is beautiful, sexy, doesn't look like she enjoys some slash. Like, if you do, I don't hold that against you. Like, if you're a lesbian, I got no problem with you or gay people, to be perfectly honest. Like, when I was in high school, I was all about gay rights. I was like, you know what? If two gay guys or two lesbians want to get married, live in the same house, be happy and miserable at the same time, and slowly arch the other towards to the day where the barrel of a gun starts to look a little too friendly, who am I to get in the way? I'm joking, of course, but that was more or less my opinion. Like, if you wanted to do it, that was fine. But the one on the left, like, if I met a woman like this in real life, I would be going out of my way to improve myself just to have a shot. Also, I'd hope she would be doing the same, to where she would be willing to go the extra mile and not be an entitled bitch. And have a good personality. Like, it helps when a woman is beautiful and has a good personality. Now, I compare this to the right with Tila. Now, Revelations, I know probably should have used a different example of this, but I said fuck it. I couldn't think of many examples of women being dismantled as well as the guys. Excuse me. And I think of this because I look how Tila is, and I actually did look at images of her and some of the characters from the 80s series. I actually saw some through the videos people were making about Revelations and comparing them. I look at Tila and the Sorceress from the 2002 reboot and the original. They were both kind of hot. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Sorceress was kind of, oh, not Sorceress, Evil Lynn was kind of evil, and hot women are usually, or evil women tend to be hot sometimes. I don't know why, they just are. And Tila was both Well, more so in the original '80s one, Tila looks kind of hot, but then again, she's a ginger or a redhead, so my view may be a bit skewed there. And in the 2002 reboot, Tila was very cute. I think I actually liked her when that show was on, maybe. I don't remember exactly. Or I might have been annoyed by the fact she was always making these snide comments. And it's very hard to remember. But she was very feminine, and it was kind of easy to tell that she was a female. Now, compare that to how she looks either, like, compare her '80s version to how she looks to the 2021 Revelations Abomination by the former diabetic golem known as Kevin Smith. She looks like a butch. Now, to be fair, I think it's hinted that she is a lesbian and that she's soft on the black girl. Now, as I said before, I got no problem with lesbians, but I don't think that was ever established in the '80s, and I especially don't remember that being established in the 2002. But being this more about the from the '80s inspiration, I could be wrong on this. But this is a prime example of the attack on femininity, and that women are not allowed to look like women; they have to look like guys, which I find a bit weird because the people who champion this are also probably the same ones that say masculinity is bad. And I think the women propagating this, I think they have penis envy, which sucks because you have me agreeing with a term Freud made up. Like the first time I ever heard of penis envy, I thought it was bullshit. I really did. I thought it was bullshit of the highest order. But every time a guy does something well, women want to tear him down, and I think, and the same token, some women also want to tear beautiful women down. Why? Because of jealous bitches. I think there are jealous bitches in the world who are like, oh well, like this goes back to the whole envious, the evil of envy. Is I think some women, actually no, I think I can't see women being the ones who are trying to propagate this, in that they don't want all women to be happy. Some of these women are miserable fucks who have probably never been laid. I mean, I never have either, but then again, haven't really made much of an effort. But they've never had sex. They hate men, and they hate women who men want to be with because they want the men to be with them secretly. And they resent these women for being beautiful and for this being something to aspire to because it gives girls something to look forward to. And then they use arguments like, oh, this is an unreal standard. Guess what, sweetheart? So is the stuff we see of men in movies. You don't see us guys bitching about it, or at the very least, some of us don't. And yeah, yeah, it's. I think it goes back to envy. I also think it goes back again to wanting to destroy the values of the Western culture and the lines we have, and also Tila was used to kind of vilify men in some regard, like in a conversation she had with Sorceress. But I'm already over that. And remember how I said it seems like women are allowed to have their role models as kids, but men aren't now. Uh, the role models for women kind of are shit because when you look at some of the women kids having shows now, they don't look like women a whole lot. Some of them look like either butches. Well, I would say the D word, the DYKE word, but I probably should avoid that. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, but so women are allowed to have their female centric shows or female led shows, and but guys aren't allowed to have guy led shows. But even still, the ones with women in them, they don't act like women. They don't, and they're not positive role models. Like Tila, her personality is insufferable. Forget the way she looks. Like I kind of find tomboys cute. I'm not gonna lie. So I kind of saw this look as kind of tomboyish, and I initially didn't have a problem with it till I thought about it more. But yeah, in terms of personality, yeah, she has the personality of a dog's breakfast. Like she's very egocentric, a bitch. It's all about me, 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 me. Which is, I think, something that feminists want to teach women now is, oh, always think about yourself. You can do better. Or men aren't worth your time. Or, again, you could do better. And I think this has contributed to, like, the problems men and women have now. Like, this, like, I've said it I've joked that race relations, the bridge between races is crashing, it's falling, it's burning, and it's being pissed on. That is true. I can say the same thing of the bridge of gender relations, and it's being destroyed by people not only giving men a bad view of women, but other women giving men a bad image of women, and women giving other women bad advice on how to be women. Just as men are getting bad advice on how to be men, women are getting bad advice on how to be women. They're learning to be egocentric, me first. And sometimes I don't have a problem with a me-centric attitude. Like, that's one of the things I like about Morrigan from Dragon Age, but it wasn't out of control and it wasn't insufferable. And where was I going to go? Oh, and it's just very kind of materialistic in some ways. Like, it's, oh, what can you offer? What do you provide? That's how women are taught to look at men, I guess. Like, men only have as much value as what they offer. But with women, it's not the other way around. It's just like, men, you should aspire to just please us and treat us like queens. And to go back to the joke where the guy goes, all women are queens, I then would have to quote the guy who responds, if she breathes, she's a thought. But yeah, that is kind of it. Like, women sometimes seem to have this kind of idea that it's all about them, that we should aspire to please them first and they should do nothing. And they should contribute nothing. Oh, and that they can have abortions whenever they want. And have, so, which sucks because we need more children in this world, to be perfectly honest. Or, actually, no, there is some debate on that. Like, maybe there's too many people in the world, but anyway. I kind of look at the way I look at this, and I'm like, this is kind of not only very destructive of postmodernism, it feels like brainwashing. This is what kind of where it goes back to communism for me, is where communism and socialism, they seem to want to control every facet of society and dictate how life ought to be, not how it is, or it's how it should be from their perspective. And anything else they would rather erase. This is why I hate communism, or at the very least Russian variant of communism. Chinese communism, fuck it. If the Chinese take over, I'm fucked anyway. I'm not a fan of Chinese communism either, but the social justice variant of communism is very annoying. It's very insufferable and it's very um, just tedious and a mite insufferable. Actually, no, not mite. It is insufferable. It is something that makes the barrel of a gun look friendly and a cyanide pill look like an okay idea. And I kind of see this as being like them brainwashing children, both boys and girls, like temporarily bringing back the boys' subject of the destruction of male role models. There's also destruction of female role models, of just like do your best to make for yourself, to make your body good, to be healthy, all that. They justify bad behavior and they try to make last man out of everyone. The last man out of everyone, which is they're all materialistic and miserable. And it's kind of sad. It is very, no, not kind of, it is sad because that is a sad way to live. Like, I'm very materialistic and my life feels hollow. I collect books that I have no idea if I'll ever finish. I try to write stuff I don't know if I'll ever finish. And I'm miserable. But I don't tear people down. I look at what people have accomplished and I'm like, I want to do something just like that. I want to build something I will be remembered for. And these people do not do that. They look at beautiful women with envy and hatred. And they seek to tear these beautiful women down because they know men don't want them. And also for the record, I highly doubt if I met a beautiful woman in real life, I would have any chance. I highly doubt that. Like, they probably look at me with disgust. Like, I'm not that attractive of a guy. Well, people say I'm handsome, but I kind of look at that as suspect. But yeah, that is kind of the thing with females. Also, to temporarily go back to like the subject of redheads being blackwashed, I think that is also like not only hypocritical. I think it goes back to also the destruction of representation of role models for redheads. But actually, no, I just think it is like they're jealous of redheads because redheads are hot. The main reason for this is like when I looked it up years ago, I was trying to find out why am I attracted to redheads. And one reason for this was there's scarcity of them. You don't meet that many redheads in real life. For I know I haven't. And what else? Another thing is, like, there's actually this joke that I heard once that maybe Hollywood is trying to, like, they like to push this oppression of the black community narrative. Like, they act like slavery's still going on. One thing they probably hate is the fact that people say, well, the Irish had slaves, and apparently redheads come from Ireland, so maybe they're thinking, you know what, maybe if we get rid of all the redheads on screen, the Irish will shut up. There's also that, but yeah, no, like like if I walked into a room and I saw someone like the Sonja Red on the left and a male and a feminist, like a modern ugly feminist, like it would not be it would not be hard to choose. It would be no contest. Like if I had a shot with the one who looks like Sonya, I would take it. Who knows? Maybe I'd be happy. I'd be attracted, and if she had a good enough personality, I'd be like, yeah, no, I need to get a ring right away. Like I need to do it real fast before someone else comes along and ruins it for me. And like I wanted to put more on this, like I did with the slide about He-Man, the destruction of masculinity in men, but there's not much for me to put on here. It's just like women are taught now to be assholes, and that's not a good thing. Like I am an asshole. I am an asshole, and I can admit that with a straight face. I'm not always an asshole. I have good sides to me, but holy fuck, do I have days where you probably wouldn't want to be near me. And yeah, women are just taught to have the worst kind of personalities now, and it's kind of not all of them. Like I've met women in real life who have good personalities that I could probably get along with. I probably wouldn't want to be in a relationship with them because like real life women, I kind of look at like a piece of meat. And no, not a piece of meat, but like I feel nothing in a sense. I mean, there's some women I look at and they have this kind of cute beauty to them, but that's about it. Anyway, yeah, we're taught there. It seems women are being destroyed like men, but for different reasons. I think for and with different justifications. With men, the justification is always, oh, men have had it too good for too long. They have all this privilege. In which case, have you not been paying attention to history? We die in wars. You women have not had to die in wars a lot of the time. Like very rarely did I hear of women fighting wars. Like maybe if you went to the Isle of Britain, like on some parts of it, or Ireland, maybe you could find some women among the Celtics who were fighting beside their man, but not always. That was not always the case. There was also, I think, supposedly the shield maidens and among the Vikings, but I don't know if that was true or just a part of mythology or whatever. So yeah, us guys, we have had like I won't deny women have been screwed over in the past. Like we, what's the word? We had more rights. Like we could actually have careers. Women didn't always have that option. Oh, there was also back to the whole woman serving in the military. There was also in Russia, like during World War II or one. There was actually a famous sniper from the Ukraine who killed Nazis. Or no, it was World War II. She was a badass. You don't meet many women like that anymore, as far as I know. But anyway, back to the male thing. Well, actually, no. To get off the male thing, like us guys have had it better than women. We weren't told to get back in the kitchen or any of that. But women, you have also had a privilege that us guys do not have. You can accuse us of something and people will instantly believe you. If we accused you of some of the things we get accused of, people would laugh at us. Like if a guy gets raped and talks about it, he is chastised and mocked and belittled. If a woman is raped and talks about it, she is believed. So that's kind of why I don't believe the whole believe all women bullshit. No, I believe in facts and evidence. I don't believe anyone unless I know them personally. And actually, no, I might be able to make this about as long as the second slide, so never mind on that part. Um, So women, you have had privileges, but I think the destruction of them is also bad because like people are not as close as we once were. They are no longer, as my feminist teacher once said, they're no longer touching. They're no longer as close as they once were. Things have gotten bad. And I think this is due in part to postmodernism, like the nihilism, the cynicism, the vilification of stuff like the male gaze. Although, while conveniently tolerating the female gaze, like us guys can't have beautiful women, but you women can have attractive guys when it's just for eye candy. Which, by the way, I'm fine with guys being attractive as well. It's just I would like the women to be also attractive because it's supposed to. Like, this is something I liked about Devil May Cry. They had beautiful women and a hot guy in it. Well, I assume Dante would be considered hot. I'm not gay or bisexual, so I would know. But I look at someone like Henry Cavill and I'd be like, yeah, I can kind of see women finding this guy attractive. Like if I was bisexual and I didn't know it, this would probably give me confusion about my sexual orientation. So I can at least recognize that. And like, yeah, it's just very a destruction of society on fundamental levels that I don't understand. To be fair, like I don't understand the mindset. Like, how can you do this intentionally and not lose sleep over it? Unless, as I said before, you want to destroy society, break it down to the very basic and fundamental levels, and rebuild up a new one. In which case, I don't want to see that society. Like, I like the society I live in. It had its flaws, but I will take 1,000 Western societies, despite their problems, before I would ever suffer a socialistic or communistic society where life is restricted, again, to the most basic and fundamental and minute levels. That's all I want to say on this front. Another aspect of, like, I decided to branch out more on this. It was originally going to be more on, like, just the destruction of masculinity and femininity. I've decided to kind of branch out on some other stuff, but one thing I've also noticed is the destruction of mentorship. Like the idea of mentors, like there always has to be something more, or maybe he's abusing the kid, or like this is the one thing I think about. Like this is something I kind of picked up from. I can't remember who it was. Larry Elder was definitely someone who brought this. I believe it was Larry Elder, the guy who has this YouTube channel and a radio show. He's from, I believe, California. He brought up the destruction of like the family life, how women are married to the state, how there are no fathers in the homes now. Denzel Washington also had a quote about this. Was when he was asked about some kind of problem, he said he believed the problem started at the home. When there's no father, the kid will just look for one out in the streets, and that father figure may not be the best one they find. This is also something I've kind of found in. I do want to say this is maybe a problem for the black community, but no, it's not. There are white families that don't have fathers either. And plus, I've never actually talked to a lot of black people in my life about this because it'd be like, how do you approach them on the subject without the risk of being punched or shot, or just being told to fuck off? Because if someone walked up and started asking me a bunch of questions like that, I would probably tell them to fuck off or punch them. Actually, no, knowing me, I'd probably just say to please leave. But yeah, there is no emphasis on mentorship now, or at the very least that there is, it's kind of not as great in my opinion. That's why I have these two images up. One is of Duncan from Dragon Age Origins, and he was not the best. Like he was very briefly a mentor to you in the game, and then the other one is actually I'll have to look it up just to put credit on the source later in the description. But it's supposed to be a mythological kind of mentorship. Who it is, I can't remember. It was just this random image from Google I picked for the video, and like mentorship seems to be, and especially fathers and mentorship seems to be torn down as well. Like it's just you're expected just to find things out on your own. That is not a good idea. Like I have learned things on my own, but I had help learning some other things. Like I learned how to whittle from my dad. I learned some of the stuff I learned about writing, I learned from comp classes, and I had a good teacher for that. I had good mentor figures. I had bad ones, but I also had good ones. It just depends where you go in life or who you go to for a mentorship. Um, this is also a good trope in fiction, like Obi-Wan. Although I hate Obi-Wan, to be perfectly honest, like I hate the fact that he lied to Luke, and it's like what I told you was technically true from a certain point of view. I'm like bullshit. I call bullshit. I call bullshit of the highest caliber. But anyway, yeah, like there's always this mentor in mythology and kind of fiction as well. Like the mentor is a good archetype and a good role because you need someone in your life to show you how to be a certain kind of person. Like who we are, it's still up to us. Like there's a song called "The Family Tree." I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but it's kind of a gay song. And I don't mean like a homosexual kind of way. I mean like in a kind of like when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, gay meant stupid or an insult of some kind. The song is kind of stupid, but at the same time, it has this one good line where it's like, "You didn't ask for this, nobody ever would. Caught in the middle of this dysfunction. It's your sad reality, your messed up family tree." And you're left with all these questions. Are you going to be like your father was and his father was? Do you have to carry what they've handed down? You don't. That's basically the thing about the song is we are who we choose to be. However, we can also be influenced who we choose to be by other people, by the adults in our life that we take as mentors, who take us as pupils and students. Our pedagogues do influence us to be a certain kind of person. And I've had various kinds of people like that in my life, whether it be my parents or college teachers or high school teachers or any kind of teacher. Some of those pedagogues I treated with reverence and respect and listened to. Some of them I was respectful towards, but I thought they were full of shit. Like this one guy, it was pretty obvious he was a never Trumper, and he was and he was pretty much into the whole woke crap. If not, he made me think he was. But yeah, I played the part of, yeah, like I was apathetic basically. Well, we have these, but in fiction, mentors don't play as much of a role, in my opinion. Like this is something I hated about the Last Jedi. Like, Ossessy, you'll disagree with me on this. You think he got it right in some way? I still say this was a found for me, or about it for me, is that the mentor role is kind of denigrated. The mentor is a loser who hates life, who wants the Force to die. He's basically turned his back on religion. It's basically atheism. And Ray basically just learns things on her own and is just good just because she's awesome. And I don't like that. Like, we are not awesome. We do not excel at what we do on our own. Sometimes we are born with a natural talent, but we need people to help us cultivate it. To help us kind of sometimes show us, even if, like, if we don't know the way we want to go, sometimes we need someone to show us to be the helping hand that says, you're good at this. You should, like, you're very good at this. You should try to work at it more and inspire them to, like, further their craft, to hone it. Like, this isn't exactly a mentor example, but one thing about Bill Burr I once heard was one time he was working on the Chappelle show, and I think him and Dave Chappelle were smoking, and they talked, and Chappelle was like, "You're funny, man. Yeah, I think you're funny." And that stuck with Bill Burr. Like, he was like, "Well, Chappelle thought I was funny, so maybe I'm doing something right." So a mentor has that can have that kind of effect of, well, I was given some incentive and some, like, a helpful nudge in this direction. Maybe I should pursue it. And someone has to be that guiding hand to help us see who we need to be. And I say this about his real life as well because there are probably not a lot of paternal figures in the home as much. Like, I probably lucked out with my dad being in the home, and he probably would have shown me how to be a man if I actually showed some initiative or interest to ask him enough. But I was kind of like, yeah, I'll just figure it out on my own. Like, or actually no, it was more like I was hesitant to learn. Like there were certain things I didn't learn. Like I never got the talk. I had the internet for that, and like a lot of these people I see now, like feminists, like the bad kind. I'm like, yeah, there was no father in the home for this broad. It's pretty obvious. Or I look at these soy boys and male feminists. There was no father at home because if so, they would not have turned out the way they did. Like if my kid said some of the shit these assholes say, I would be like, son, what are you doing? What is this? Do you have any idea how bad this makes me look? Like people are asking what I did to you because of how fucked up you turned out. Or if they started out early on with this, then maybe the dad would have said, "You can't do this, son," or might have beat the shit out of him. I'm fine with either one. But it's just like either they have role models that are not there, or they have role models who do a very shitty job and instill very bad ethics and morals. And I think that while postmodernism may not have contributed to that, it's okay with it. It endorses it. It encourages it. It has no problem with it, and it wants more of that, is what I'm saying. And again, I think that is evil. Just to deny, because like I look at these incel guys, and like Joe Rogan said, they don't know how to be men. That's because no one showed them how to be a man. Probably. I don't know any of these guys personally, so I can't speak with certainty. But that is the impression I get: is if they don't know how to be men, it's probably because no one showed them how to be. There was no guiding hand there. No hand was outstretched to say, "Here, I will teach you. I will show you how to be a man or a person of respect." No one did that. No one was there to do that for them, and there was no one for them to ask that of. And it's sad. It really is. Like most of the things I'll be talking about, I find this to be very sad. A sad state of affairs, very pitiful, and we need more pedagogues, to be perfectly honest, because without them, the world is a much, well, both duller and kind of depressing place. Because we are left blind, we are left ignorant, and we are left without guidance of the previous generation on how to proceed and how to avoid making mistakes that the previous generations made. And that is exemplified also by postmodernism because the stuff it encourages repeats the failures and the faults and the problems of the past. Like socialism and communism, we know it's a bad idea. Well, some of us who actually have brains do, but some of these people, they've been brainwashed by the system into thinking it's okay. And the pedagogues they offer now, they are not good pedagogues. They are not good mentors. They are not good teachers. They are the worst possible source to have. And I lucked out, but that's because I live in Texas. Like, political correctness isn't as strong here. And, yeah, it's fucked. It's all fucked. The past and the suffering of the past is shown little deference or respect. The stuff of honor thy father is ignored. To be perfectly honest, this is also kind of infuriating that I look at the past. Like, this also is kind of infuriating for me on a personal level because I look at the past of both the struggles of the members of my family. Like, I had a relative, Tom. He was my dad's uncle. He served in a war. He was drafted into Vietnam. He, yeah, he suffered in a way that I can't comprehend. He got cancer because of it. He, and there are probably people who went through far worse than him. I don't even want to know, to be perfectly honest. Actually, I probably would want to know, but that's not the point. The point is, another thing about postmodernism, it's about, and cultural Marxism and socialism and communism. One is the ignorance of the past, the ignorance of the past. Like Cicero has this good quote: "To remain ignorant of what happened before you were born is to always remain a child." And that is probably something about these various things that I find annoying about, again, communism, socialism, cultural Marxism, postmodernism. It's both the willful ignorance about things that happened in the past before we were born, but also just the lack of respect to the dead. Like there are a few things in this world I respect. I will admit that, but there is one thing I believe you wholeheartedly should show respect for, and that is the damn dead. You should learn from their mistakes, see where they messed up, and try to do better. Postmodernism instead tries to destroy stuff that was created in the past for the sake of building up stuff made in the present, which is, to be perfectly honest, inferior when compared. Like, I look at the dead and I am left with this almost overwhelming feeling of not responsibility but wonder. Could I ever compare to what they endured or what they accomplished? Could I ever, should I even aspire to be like them? Could I ever leave such a legacy? I do not feel envy about the past people who came before me. I feel respect and admiration. Because this is a thought I have and I often keep it to myself, but life is not for the weak. It is full of suffering. And that is why I think the dead deserve respect. They endured the slings and arrows of time and life. They endured the hardship. They suffered it to the last. Most of them anyway. Some took an easy way out, but a lot suffered it. They endured it. And they ended like a man and a woman. And they should be saluted for that. Instead, they are, no, they are shown no respect. They are demonized, vilified, or at least some are. Some some people through history are conveniently ignored. Like, people talk about the evils of slavery. I hate to break it to you, but lots of civilizations practice slavery. Going back to the very first civilizations of, I believe, Sumeria, they had we had the first ever code of law. We had slaves back then. Well, not we, but actually, yeah, I'm probably, for all I know, I'm probably related to Sumerians. You never know. Like, I come from a very mutt bloodline. So they are willing to condemn the people who own slaves, but they conveniently ignore the fact of stuff like, oh, it was actually Africans who sold their fellow Africans into slavery, usually for guns. In which case I say they got fleeced. Like, they got screwed over. Like, I would have asked for more. I'd be like, you sold a person and only got a few guns out of it. I would have asked for an armada of ships, or how to learn how to sail, or to speak English, or how to navigate the civilizations outside of Africa, or something. I would have asked for something more besides guns. That would definitely be included, but not limited to. And this narrative of the past is that, oh, it's all about oppression, inequality. In some way, you might be right. There was inequality in the past, but there was also hardship, suffering, pain, and everyone endured it. Everyone died. Death is the great equalizer. Doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, old, young, black, white, Hispanic, or whatever, or gray, or red. You will all die equally. In death, you are the same. And these people, they do not show respect for the past. They prefer to tear it down and destroy it, which I find very evil. Like, that is very, very evil for me, because if you destroy the past, you just make it easier for the mistakes of the past to be repeated, like the Holocaust, or the horrors committed by the Soviet Union. You make it possible for those to be enacted again and again and again if you ignore history, because you are doomed to repeat it. And it's disheartening. it's very disheartening to know that people are so willful to be ignorant that they will give up anything, their freedoms, their history, their autonomy. They will give that up and become cattle, nothing more, for materialism and personal gain. And yeah, it's just disgusting. Like, I think there's this, yeah, again, vilification of the past. Like, whenever I learned history in college, at sometimes it was just they would talk about it and that was it. But sometimes they'd bring it and oh, there was this disparity, there was this inequality, there was this misogyny, there was this, there was this, there was this, there was, and I'm like, shut the fuck up, I don't care. I really do not care. You have destroyed my ability to give a shit. That's what they do. They destroy your ability to both give a shit about the suffering of the past and they trivialize it, in my opinion. Which is probably one of the more heinous aspects of this cultural Marxism and postmodernism. This age of nihilism and actually, no, I think a better word for it would be, as it's a Gundam would call it, an age of apathy. We live in an age of apathy where people just don't give a damn anymore. And it's scary. When Call of Duty had its Cold War game coming out, they actually released a trailer, and one thing they included was there were these lines by a guy I believe named Yuri Bezmenov. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He was a former KGB something. I would say collaborator, but no, not that. It was more like he worked for them, and he learned lots of stuff. And one of the things he talked about was destabilization. He was interviewed by this guy, and I remember seeing this when I was in some kind of government class. I think it was either U.S. government or Texas government. No, I think it was U.S. government because that was one of the first classes I took after I moved to Texas. And at the time, I did not give a shit because I had heard all these things about him. Like, I had gone through so many times where I had heard people talk about all these imminent problems and disasters that were on the horizon. I'd gone through the 2012 debacle, and it's at this point I was apathetic. I was like, I don't care anymore. I just do not give a damn. I refuse to believe it. Took a while for me to come around to see his point, but after and around by the time I saw the trailer where they were using quotes, says, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy," and I listened to the points he was on talking about destabilization, countermeasures, and one of the things he touched on was the possibility of all these social issues. Communists would use that to destabilize a nation. Look around, America. We have a country of resentment now. We have everyone resents one another. Everyone hates each other. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people do. And the annoying part, it was propagated by socialist, communist white people who did this, and they're always talking about how evil white people are, vilifying them. And you know, the more you do that, one day a white guy's gonna snap. Oh wait a minute, one already did, but for different reasons. One's gonna snap and do something that we're all not gonna like, and we'll have no one to blame but these Marxist assholes. But yeah, they preach about inequality, disparity of wealth, of oppression. The oppression Olympics, basically, is the most annoying thing about cultural Marxism and postmodernism because postmodernism champions it. It is okay with it. It puts it on a pedestal, basically. But instead of fighting it, like instead of being a champion against it, they make it worse. They preach to people. How do I put this? They make the problem worse by just vilifying one group of people and trying to build up another, and making the people they're vilifying resent the other people they're building up. And I don't want that. I do not want that. I don't want. Like, make no mistake, I got no problem against the other races. I do not want an ethno state. Like, I think regardless of your skin color in this country, you'll find an asshole or two. I mean, there are black people who probably hate Asians. I've seen enough videos on Twitter of black guys attacking Asians and elderly people. You're always going to have that, regardless. You can't get rid of it, so stop trying. You can only mitigate it and denormalize it. But instead of fighting it the right way of trying to slay it, they have made it worse. They make people resent each other. They make people despise one another for the group they belong to, be it their race, their ethnic group, or their social group, or their gender. They have turned men against women. They've turned blacks and whites against each other. They've turned blacks and Hispanics against each other. They've turned blacks and Asians against each other. They've turned whites and like all the races are being turned against each other, and I despise it. But mainly, they're trying to turn all races against white people. They have no problem vilifying us and saying the most ugly things about us. How they call us evil, but I find what they do to be more evil. Because if we said half the shit about when it's a black person doing well, we would be called racist. If the races were reversed anyway. Like the blackwashing thing. People try to defend that. I'm like, okay, if the races were reversed and it was a white redhead playing a black person's role, people would want to crucify whoever thought it was a good idea to do that. It's intellectually dishonest and hypocritical. And most, no, just intellectually dishonest is the main point. Is it's blatant racism because it's like, oh, all these white people, they need to be torn down. They need to give stuff up, and we need to get, oh, and we need to take all these characters from comics that they've enjoyed and make them black. As young Ripper would put it, yeah, you basically want to give black people, white people sloppy seconds. Here's something that I think the black community should be aware of. You are basically, if you side with this bullshit, you are siding with the most condescending group of ideology ever, because they think that little of you. They think you don't deserve originality. They think you don't deserve original characters, and they have such little respect for you. And the second you fall out of line, they call you every horrible thing under the sun. They call you an Uncle Tom, a sellout, the N word. I mean, they may not call you the N word to your face, but they say it behind closed doors. And yeah, it's fucked. It is just fucked. And again, this kind of goes back to the point of the tearing down of men and beautiful women is, well, no, mainly the tearing down of men. Also, it's the inequality of gender in that men are not allowed to have our role models, but women, you can have role models. They'll be shitty ones, but you'll still have them. And yeah, it's fucked. It's very fucked up. Um, like I think this goes back to the whole the envious arguments and Nietzsche of like the materialistic people who want the things you have and want to be in your position but will never be, so they want to tear you down to their level. This is why I call them evil. This is why I call groups like Antifa evil. They tear down their fellow man gleefully and justify it as the greater good or the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do. It's more than evil. It's almost ghoulish. It's pernicious, I guess, would be a better word. And people who justify this, you are a part of the problem, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, no, you are part of the problem, and you are part of the denigration and degradation of our societies, and why it will one day do a swan dive itself, just like the Roman Republic did, and kind of like how Greece did, but Greece was kind of a different story. Rome did a flat out swan dive and devolved into tyranny, with a senate that was fangless, and was a title and just there for ceremony. It was practically useless. And like the vilification of these various groups just so they can prop up others, supposedly, is kind of disgusting. Actually, no, it is disgusting. It actually no, that's all I can say on this one. Like I'm just like rattling off on these subjects one by one as best I can. But yeah, cultural Marxism and postmodernism. It's not only cynical well, postmodernism is very cynical and nihilistic. Cultural Marxism and postmodernism is both about like destroying what came before. And unfortunately, we live in a society in America that was built by white people, and well, black people also contributed to the building of it. But yeah, and Christianity, like those were two big parts of the foundation of America. There was also some influence from from Britain. So these people want to tear that down for the sake of, oh, it's fair, everything's fair, 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 fair. Nothing has to be fair. You, unlike human rights, like freedom of speech, that is a human right. Equality, to be treated equally, is a fundamental right. But fairness was never on the table. It's either you do well or you do okay, and if you do bad, I'm sorry, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately, and that really does suck. But that is the way it goes. Sometimes people just fail, and it's not because someone else built themselves up. It's because that person's life didn't go the way it could have best. And yeah, the envious, they just want to turn people against each other because I also think it's because they're bored out of their fucking minds. Like they have nothing better to do. They have way too much free time on their hands, and they're like, yeah, why not? I got nothing better to do. And either that, or they say, oh, well, this person's happy and I'm not, so they can't be happy. Like you kind of see this with journalists. Like whenever there's something good coming out, they want to destroy it. And I would bet money they're some of the most miserable troglodytes you'll ever find. I almost forgot to touch on this, but one more thing about this kind of all these various things that I've been talking about. One other thing that was also brought up in this conversation on Discord was how ambition seems to be vilified and depicted as a bad thing in media. That's not wrong. That is very on base. That is very on point. Ambition is seen as a bad thing, I guess, and by these people, I think it is also because you seek to build yourself up, and these people look at it as that as, oh, how dare you try to build yourself up? What? It's not good enough being here in the bottom with the rest of us. And it's like, no, it's not. I want to build something and not just wallow in squalor all my life. I want to leave a legacy, something to be remembered. And these people hate that. They vilify it. They are disgusted by it. And but then again, that makes sense because to their narrative, it has to be evil. To their ideology, it is evil because the ambitious and the creative are better than them. There's something they can never be, which is they will contribute something that will outlast their lifetime. And yeah, and plus they hate the idea of passing down something that's worthwhile. Like they prefer to pass down their dogma and their bullshit. And and that in and of itself is bullshit because we all have something to contribute to this world. We just have to find out what it is. And these people, they gave up on trying to find out what that was. They have settled for destruction, of tearing down their fellow man, and just being cunts, to be perfectly honest with you. They don't see the merit in leaving something behind that is besides what they believe or think ought to be. They don't want to leave something behind that will be remembered positively, or at least that they think will be remembered positively. And the ambitious, they aren't that bad of people. Like ambition can lead you to do great things. It was ambition that led to the construction of the pyramids, I believe. It was ambition that has led to conquest that formed civilizations. It may not have been ambition that led us to um, revolt against England and dump the tea into the ocean, but it could have been ambition that encouraged Americans to expand out in the West, even though it had detrimental side effects to other people. It is ambition which allows people to create and have creativity. It is ambition and creativity that has formed some of the most great entertainment I've ever known. And sometimes it was ambition inspired by the ambitions of the past. And ambition is a wonderful thing. It can lead you to do something that others would never have thought to have done. And the ambitious should not be vilified. They should be encouraged and cheered on and applauded. They should be seen for what they are. They are the people who build things that will be remembered. They are the giants, basically. Well, not just the giants, but yes. Like if someone ever, I think I could swear someone once said it was giants that built this place. Like it was probably ambition that really built Troy. Like people in the legends say that Troy's walls were built by Apollo and I want to say Poseidon. Like it was his brother and one of it was Poseidon and one of Zeus's sons that were doing that as a labor after they failed to imprison and revolted against Zeus and rebelled. It was probably actually ambition that led to the creation of that Cyclopean wall Troy had. And yeah, just be ambitious, dare to dream, dare to be different, is all I'm saying. Because being part of the crowd is not fun. It sucks ass through a straw. It is. Like, it sucks harder than a prostitute giving you a blowjob. And it's not in the fun way, trust, I imagine. But ambition, it feels great. Having something to work towards. It gives you a sense of purpose. Which is another thing I think these people despise. Which I think the idea of a person having purpose in life annoys them because they don't have it. Again, it's something another person has but they don't have, and therefore they resent it. They are resentful, they are envious, and ergo, back to the point, since they don't have it, they don't believe anyone else should. And that's not sad, that is pathetic. That is the most pathetic form of life form, in my opinion, is those who cannot create, so they must destroy. And those are the kind of people who do deserve to be forgotten by time and history, and they deserve to be forgotten by humanity as a whole. Like, they deserve it. They get no sympathy from me. Anyway, that's the video. Those are more or less the points I wanted to touch on. If you have any takeaway from this, I think is that postmodernism and social justice and critical race theory and cultural Marxism, not only do they need to die, but they kind of leave what I consider one of the worst types of legacies to leave, which is what I prefer to call. There's probably someone's probably already touched on this in a thesis somewhere, so I'm probably not the first person to have these kind of ideas. But these various groups and ideologies, they would like to leave what I like to call a legacy of destruction. The opposite of a legacy of creation. A legacy of destruction is you just destroy everything. You destroy a culture, an idea, things that people could leave behind to be remembered so they are not forgotten. To be perfectly honest, I consider it the most evil kind of legacy, right up there with the legacy of death or killing. Because when you kill someone, yes, you're erasing them from the world, technically, but but when you destroy something more than that, like a culture, you're destroying the contributions of hundreds of people who did something that outlasted them and probably the society they lived in. And I think that's just unacceptable. I think that's something that people should not do. I think we should aspire to leave a legacy of creation. Something that has been done by men like Lovecraft, by George Lucas, like J.R.R. Tolkien, various authors that have made contributions, like something Pond, the guy who made Cyberpunk, the tabletop book. Like, just make something that you'll be remembered for instead of trying to tear someone down. And stop acting like we live in the 1950s or 60s. That's all I want to say. And With that out of the way, I think I'll call it on this video. Just have a nice day, and remember the game was rigged from the start.